Good evening, everybody. Well, Donald Trump became the US president because he was a master of Twitter. He has amassed a following of 43.6 million people, and he tweets at them all day and often during the night as well. But when you use a medium like that, you've got to get it right. And today, many think he got it very badly wrong, because at 7 o'clock this morning, Washington time, he retweeted something that originally had come from a lady called Nigel Farage. You may never have heard of her, but she's the deputy leader of the far-right group Britain First. She's somebody who was convicted last November of religiously aggravated harassment for hurling abuse at a Muslim woman in a hijab. There were 3 videos that she'd posted online that had been retweeted. It appeared that Trump had retweeted directly something from Britain First, and it's led to a hell of a row. A hell of a row, firstly, because of who Britain First are. And yeah, they are genuinely extreme, far-right, deeply unpleasant. No question about that in my mind, or I think anybody else's, frankly. There's also a question about the content. Were these genuine videos? And I think in the case of one of them, it certainly wasn't. And that could even extend to 2 of the 3. And were they in very poor taste? Well, before I tell you what I think, Downing Street has got involved in this and said that Trump was wrong to share anti-Muslim videos posted online, and they've been pretty strong about it. They say that Britain First uses hateful narratives which peddle lies and stoke tensions. It is wrong for the president to have done this, the Downing Street spokesman has said. And Labour MP Chuka Umunna says Mr. Trump is normalising hatred and shouldn't be invited to the United Kingdom.
I don't think the President of the United States, a president who has not only promoted bigotry, misogyny and racism in his own country, I don't think he is welcome here. I think the invite that has been made to him to come to our country in early 2018 should be withdrawn. What we see here is the President retweeting and promoting the propaganda of a far-right, racist, bigoted group, members of which have been arrested and convicted for promoting hatred in this country. I am absolutely astounded that a man, any person in his position, holding the office that he does, should be promoting the propaganda of a far-right British group. I am just astounded by that. And you have to consider, in many other situations, if, say, you had a recording artist coming over here or somebody else who was promoting this kind of thing, there'd be real questions about whether or not they should be coming to our country.
So, it's being said by Chuka Umunna that he should not be allowed to come to this country, although there are many in the Labour Party who have thought that all the way through. So what has actually happened here? Has he retweeted something from Nigel Farage of Britain First? OK, I mentioned already he's got 43.6 million Twitter followers, but he himself only follows 45 people. And this, folks, is not a defence. I'm not giving one of President Trump tonight, but it is an explanation so we can get the facts right. Ann Coulter, right-wing commentator in America, she retweeted these videos. The president saw that because she's one of the 45, and he retweeted it. I very much doubt whether President Trump has ever heard of Britain First, and certainly not Nigel Farage. It was Ann Coulter's stuff that he put back out there. I think this shows that it is the president himself that does his tweets. There were some today saying, well, maybe somebody in the Trump team made a mistake. I don't believe that. I'm absolutely certain that he does all his own tweets himself. And yes, I do think these videos are in very bad taste, and he's shown poor judgment. Of that, I've got no doubt at all. And we listened during the news, did we not, to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House press secretary, and she was saying, well, look, whether the videos are real or not, the threat is real, and that's what the president is talking about. It's an attempt by the White House press secretary to double down. I think that in itself was a mistake. There are times when perhaps it's better. Do you know what? Put your hands up, say, I got this wrong, and frankly try to move on. So I don't think what he's done today is right or good, but I think to try and use it as a reason for him not to come to the United Kingdom. Personally, I think he's wrong. What do you think? Should Donald Trump be welcome to the UK in the new year? And if you think these retweets show that he's beyond the pale, call me and tell me that on 0345 6060 973. If you think he actually does need to come here and we can ask him some questions about it, then text to 84850. Or if you think actually he's just made a mistake, he'd no idea who Britain First were, then tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, you can watch us live on Facebook. I'm here inside the belly of the beast, the European Parliament in Brussels, and you can comment on Facebook too. And I'm going to go for immediate reaction to Harry, who's calling from Nottingham. Good evening, Harry.
Hi, Nigel. Big fan here. I just think that it's a kind of a massive overreaction for people to say he should be banned from visiting the UK. I think out of all the things he's done, for this to be the catalyst to ban him from the UK, I think is a bit ridiculous, and he is the elected president of the United States, and it should be in our best interest to welcome them, and we don't have to necessarily agree with their views in order
I mean, this is not the first time we've seen this, is it? Because, you know, we've seen before Sadiq Khan saying he shouldn't be welcome to come to the capital. So lots of people don't want him to come, but you see this as an overreaction, and I do understand that. But would you agree that what happened here was actually in very poor taste?
Yes, I think it was in poor taste. I think to share a minute group called Britain First, I don't agree with some of their views. I think they're a bit of an irrelevant group anyway. You only have 2,000 followers. But I think, I think some of the things he said about grabbing women by the pussy in the video, I think is a lot more distasteful than sharing a tweet from a minute group.
Yeah, I think that's a view that's a view that quite a lot would share. I mean, look, I think you're right. I think Britain First has been pretty irrelevant. Doesn't mean there aren't perhaps some quite dangerous people in it. But I think what the media are doing today, by screaming about the fact that this originated from Britain First, is they're actually raising their profile in a very, very dramatic way, when, as I explained, it was actually Ann Coulter, the right-wing commentator, who Donald Trump was really retweeting. So there have been some mistakes made there. But hey, you know, your view is it's an overreaction. We may not agree with him, but he's an important partner. He's an important person to come to London, yeah?
Is it a point, though, that we've welcomed Vladimir Putin, we've welcomed the King of Saudi Arabia, we've welcomed questionable leaders?
I mean, Hirohito even visited London a couple of decades ago. No, absolutely.
Who've abused human rights and all sorts, and yet we're prepared to ban a president of the most powerful country in the world due to some views that even I don't agree with on that basis. I think. Yeah, no,
I think that is a very, very logical way of looking at it. I think the idea that he should be banned over something he retweeted at 7 a.m. in the morning, even if it was in bad taste, is crazy. And I thank you very much indeed for your call. I get on Twitter, don't you find it odd how the media and the liberal left are outraged about who posted the videos rather than their content? Yeah, I mean, I do. You know, I understand that. Nigel, you fool. Whilst you still have your reputation, you should distance yourself from him quickly. I honestly cannot believe this guy is head of the US government, says Chris in Yorkshire. Chris, I have said today I'm not even attempting to defend this. It shows very poor judgment indeed. All right? I've said it, Chris. I'm not trying to defend him, but I am making a point that it is a mistake of the media to constantly go on and say that the US president was retweeting Britain First, when I'm convinced he literally had no idea who they were. It was Ann Coulter's work that he was retweeting. Kerry says, I agree with Nigel, he has made a poor judgment. Well, of course, the more you tweet, the more you say, the more you do, the more chances are that you will make mistakes, and this, I think, is quite a big one. David says, regardless of your personal or political views, I can't get my head around the constant Trump bashing from the UK establishment and media. Well, you know, even without this stuff being put out there today, you know, any excuse, any possible excuse that is found to criticise him, to call him homophobic or racist, the media, much of it, will use anyway. The difference is today, he's given them a stick with which to beat him. What does Sam in Beaconsfield make of this?
Good evening, Nigel. I'm finding myself in an extremely odd position. I'm finding myself on a day where I'm defending Mr. Trump and agreeing with you for that matter.
Well, I'm not really defending him, am I? I'm not really defending him.
I know you're not defending him. I know you're not defending him. I'm defending Mr. Trump, and I'm agreeing with you that the media have gone a little too far. Look, it's wrong to call Mr. Trump. I don't like Mr. Trump. I don't necessarily at all agree with his policies, but at the end of the day, he is the President of the United States, and the United States is a strategic partner of our country. We have diplomatic relations with them. I think he should come to the UK. We should welcome him like we do with all of the leaders of our strategic partners. And if there is any protest for us to put to him, we should do it either through official channels, diplomatic channels, or maybe through Mrs. May. If there are things that people want to say to Mr. Trump, there are ways for us to say it. I find and I forgot the name of the gentleman who protested in the media today, but I find that a populist activity, and I generally don't support populist activities as they are. You know, we should stop calling and labeling Mr. Trump in all sorts of. I don't find him to be racist. I'm a Muslim myself. I don't find him to be anti-Muslim either. I think he's a man of sometimes poor judgment. He's a populist. To do is to try to actually address his policies rather than continuously label him and have to go at him individually.
Have you got any sort of thinking, any feeling for what must have been going through his mind when he posted this morning?
Yeah, I think the man is just a simple, quick person to react. I think what he's trying to say is, look, there is a serious problem in the West in that we have ideological enemies. We have people who are against our values. We have people who are against the ways of our living. They don't have anything to offer us in terms of what they're thinking is, apart from just resorting to terror and trying to ruin our way of life that way. He's trying to portray that. He's also trying to say at the same time that a part of an opposition to that is extremism on the other side. So we need to try to fight both grounds. I think so.
We know what he was. Yeah. Okay. We know what he was trying to do, but it was poor judgment, wasn't it, Sam?
Very poor judgment.
Thank you, Sam. You know, a Muslim caller saying, hey, he's got this wrong, but banning him from the country would frankly be crazy. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on OBC, live from Brussels, and it's 7:15. Donald Trump, with his early morning tweets, retweets 3 videos, one of which we know to be fake, the other 2 of which are in pretty poor taste, and that leads to people like Chuka Umunna saying he should not be allowed to visit this country. And I'm asking you, do you think he should still be welcomed to come to the United Kingdom? I've said myself, I think they're in very poor taste, but the media hysteria saying that he retweeted something from Britain First, that is what has caught on. Britain First are a far-right organisation in this country. They've got people there with serious convictions, but frankly, very few people even know who they are, and they put this out, and it was retweeted by a right-wing American commentator called Ann Coulter, and that is who the president tweeted. So somehow, I think we're almost taking a neo-fascist organisation in Britain and popularising them for reasons that are quite beyond me. Abigail is my next caller from Balham. She's a new caller to this show. Good evening, Abigail.
Yeah, I'm a new caller to the show, but I'm not a new caller to LBC, but I do listen to you.
Right.
And I do. You make me laugh. But the thing is...
Right.
Yeah,
well, that's a start, anyway.
No, you do. You make me laugh. But with regard to this thing that Chuka Umunna is saying, right, first and foremost, I was asked a direct question, so I'm going to answer that directly. Yep. I don't think Mr. Trump should, or President Trump, sorry, give me his title, should come over here. I just think that he's a racist and he needs to stay wherever he's at and do his thing, where all those rednecks like him doing it. I think that... Why do you,
Abigail, let me just ask you, because it's very important, because you've just said that, you know, the leader of the free world is a racist. It's quite a big charge. Why do you say that?
Oh, are you kidding me?
No, I'm honestly asking you. I mean, is he anti-Muslim racist? Is he anti-Muslim homophobic racist? I mean, where does this? I mean, where's the evidence that he's racist?
He's anti anything. He's anti anything that's not WASP. That's what he is. He doesn't like Mexicans. He doesn't like Muslims. He doesn't like African Americans. He doesn't like anything that's not from his background, which is German, Scottish.
I don't think you're being quite fair. Do you know something? Trump's first overseas visit, Abigail, where did he go? He went to Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. He said, I chose to make my first foreign trip to the heart of the Muslim world, to the nation that serves as custodian of the two holiest cities in the Islamic faith. And he spoke at great length to many of the biggest leaders of the Muslim world, saying, you know, I'm absolutely not against you as a religion. I'm against some of the terrorism that has emanated from extreme elements of your religion. Do you know, he even said in that speech, some estimates hold that 95% of the victims of terrorism are themselves Muslim. Now, Abigail, I know he says things that are pretty out there. I know there's a very New Yorker direct way of doing things, but if you were right that he was genuinely a racist and didn't like anyone that wasn't a WASP, why would he have gone to Riyadh and done that?
There might have been a nice golf course there. You get people that are racist that you've got. No, let me finish. You talk.
Go on.
You get people that are racist that will go and sit down and eat in Indian restaurants. That doesn't mean anything. What I was about to say was that the reason why it's got so much traction in the media by Mr. Chuka Umunna is Mr. Chuka Umunna is a media W. He will do anything for media coverage. Chuka Umunna needs to spend some time with his actual constituents. I'm sort of on the fence. If it had come from somebody else, I probably would have given it a lot more credence. Chuka is only about Chuka. He needs to visit some of his own constituents. Out of 650 people in MPs, he's ranked at about 645 in terms of responding to his constituents. But he's never off the telly.
Are you sure of that?
Oh, Google it. Get one of your guys in there to Google it. He's never off the telly. He's never off the radio. He'll go from Streatham to where it is, Sheffield. If there's a TV studio, he's there. But he does not look after his constituents. The only reason he's jumped on this bandwagon is because he wants traction. He's looking for another job, similar to the job that you've got, either as a radio presenter or as another kind of TV type show.
We've said. Abigail, you've said an awful lot about Chuka Umunna here in the last few minutes. But tell me, is he right or is he wrong? He wants the president to be banned from coming to the country. Is that right or wrong?
So I'm going to remove him from the equation because I don't think very much of him.
I got that.
I don't. If it come from somebody else, it would have had more credence with me. I don't. But just trying to take him out of it altogether, right? I'm not saying whether he's right or whether he's wrong. I think it is right that Mr. Trump should not come to this country, bearing in mind the views that he has, that I believe he has. Bearing in mind that we're soon going to have a person of mixed race within the royal family. Somebody with his apparent views should not be coming here. We're a very diverse nation, and if he's not down with that, he needs to stay with his red.
So should we? Do you think with him as leader, we should leave NATO as well, perhaps then, and withdraw from America completely?
Anyway. Isn't he getting out of all of his responsibilities with NATO?
No, he's not. Abigail, he's asking the other member states to pay their membership fee, which is 2% per annum. He is not anti the whole world, as you seem to say. He's actually, since he became president, travelled many parts of the world, and the one thing he's tried to do, I guess, on the international stage is to wake us all up to the real threat that is posed by North Korea. I think in that he's done a good thing. Look, Abigail, I disagree with you. I know he can come across in a certain way. I don't believe him to be racist. I don't believe him to be this bad person he's painted out to be. I do think he got today badly wrong. But you're really saying that we should not have a visit to this country from the most powerful man in the world with whom we need a military and ultimately trade alliance.
Yes, I'm saying that. That's exactly what I'm saying.
OK. No, couldn't be clearer. Abigail, I thank you very much indeed for your call. Nigel, I think it might pay President Trump to stop tweeting and leave that to the birds. He should be welcomed here, of course, as we've had much worse presidents than him that have been welcomed, says Kathy from Southampton. I tell you one thing, he is not going to stop tweeting. It's through tweeting that he became the president. Anonymously, I get, Farage hasn't got the guts to stand up for the UK and call Trump out. Well, listen, I am calling him out. I am saying he's got this wrong. I don't know how I can possibly be clearer. What does Grace in Ealing think about this row Grace, good
yeah,
evening.
I think that I agree with the last caller. I'm concerned that Chuka Umunna seems to want to virtue signal whenever he gets the chance.
Right.
And many of my generation, so he's a 25-year-old, seem to love, criticising people like Donald Trump rather than trying to actually make society better. I think that Donald Trump clearly does some things which are very unwise, and he needs to get far better at apologising when he makes mistakes like this. But I think it was a mistake, and I think that banning him from coming here is not actually going to do any good. All it will do is make genuinely racist people feel more angry and agitated.
I have to say, Grace, I think that genuinely racist people in Britain today have had a really good day, because the media are playing up their significance in this out of any sense of proportion when, as I say, it was the American commentator, Ann Coulter, that he was retweeting, and I'm quite angry about that.
Yeah, and I think that we far too often oversimplify situations, and we group people into different categories and factions. I mean, the point of this video, though I've not seen it, is that we see supposedly some Muslim people doing some heinous things, and therefore Britain First wants us to hate all Muslims. If we say now Donald Trump's retweeted this, therefore he is anti-Muslim and he's evil, we're again grouping and stereotyping people. We need to stop grouping and stereotyping people, because each individual human being has their own values and actions, and Donald Trump, I think, has aligned himself with something that is unpleasant here, but we need to look in detail at his own views and actions, some of which are wrong, rather than saying because he's retweeted this particular thing, which he probably didn't know much about anyway.
I don't think he did. I don't think he did. I mean, the one thing, Grace, that was there and disturbing was, and it was an ISIS-type video of throwing young gay men off buildings. Does that happen? Has it happened in parts of the Middle East? Well, you and I both know that it has. And Trump, again, when he was in Riyadh, said young Muslim boys and girls should be able to grow up free from fear, safe from violence, and innocent of hatred. And young Muslim men and women should have the chance to build a new era of prosperity for themselves and for their peoples. And what he was really trying to do, he was saying to the Muslim leaders, when it comes to extremists, drive them out of your places of worship, drive them out of your communities, drive them out of your holy land, drive them out of this earth, which is a sort of final rhetorical flourish. The point I'm trying to make, Grace, is I genuinely do not think that Trump is anti all Muslims. He's worried about extremism, and this morning he made a mistake. That's my view.
Is extremely complex in that we know it's patently obvious that there are some very dangerous Muslims and some very fantastic Muslims.
Of course.
So we need to look at it in far more detail rather than saying, because he's retweeted this particular thing, he must be anti-everyone from the Middle East.
Yeah, there's more complexity. No, Grace, you've made that point beautifully. I thank you very much indeed. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Moira Alderson. Donald Trump's retweets of some very dubious videos this morning have caused a big row. So big, in fact, that some Labour politicians are calling for him not to be allowed to come to our country. But he's not the only person provoking rows today. No, that man, Michel Barnier, has been at it again, not content with just trying to extort vast amounts of money from the British government for us to be allowed to leave this union. The EU's chief negotiator today provoked further fury with a speech in Berlin where he implied that Brexit Britain is somehow ducking the fight with radical Islamic terrorism. Barnier said more than 500 days ago the United Kingdom took the sovereign decision to leave the European Union and bring to an end 44 years of common history. To many of us, this came as a great shock. It was a decision taken against the backdrop of a strategic repositioning by our American ally, which has gathered pace since the election of Donald Trump. It was a decision that came after a series of attacks on European soil committed by young men who grew up in Europe. It was a decision that came 6 months after the French Minister of Defence issued a call for solidarity to all his European counterparts to join forces to fight the terrorism of Daesh. Never had the need to be together, to protect ourselves together, to act together, been so strong, so manifest. Yet, rather than stay shoulder to shoulder with the Union, Britain chose to be on their own again. British officials are said to be furious because the speech is essentially accusing us of ducking out of the fight against Islamic State. Others are reporting apoplectic fury from the British government over Barnier's claims. And I have to say, you know, one thing for certain, Theresa May, and I'm not always her biggest fan, Theresa May has been in Iraq today talking to British soldiers about the fight against Islamic terrorism and about her concerns that too many beaten ISIS fighters are finding their way back into Europe. And Monsieur Barnier, you know, we have got the biggest and most sophisticated intelligence services in the whole of Europe. And I'll tell you something, even when we've left the European Union, we will still, as good friends and neighbours, share much of that information with you. The idea that by not being part of this club run by unelected men like you means we've gone weak on terrorism is utter tosh. And a further thought on the Brexit bill, and I won't call it a divorce bill. It's not a divorce bill. It is us leaving this club. From the moment we voted Brexit to the time that Article 50 expires on March the 29th, 2019, we will have paid net into the European Union over £25 billion. The offer that came from the British government yesterday is what comes after Article 50 expires, which could be up to a further £50 billion. So it could well be that actually from the moment we voted to us finally getting out of this is going to cost 80 billion sterling. It's a mind-blowing sum of money. And believe me, it is not what 17.4 million people voted for. We voted to stop giving money to the European Union, not to giving even more. My next caller on Donald Trump and whether he should be banned from coming to the United Kingdom is a new caller to this show, and he's Dave from Uxbridge. Good evening, Dave.
Hi, Nigel. There's a few more issues here than just the visit of Donald Trump. I think we need to recognise the office of the President of the United States and allow him to come to the UK. That's not necessarily showing respect to Donald Trump. It's showing respect to the office of the President of the United States. We've got to look at what he's done this morning. It's a serious lack of judgment on his behalf. But what sites was he trawling to retweet 3 times?
No. Right. Let me, Dave, just explain this again, right? Because this is very important. So, President Trump has 43.6 million followers on Twitter, okay? But he himself only follows 45 people, one of whom is an American conservative right-wing commentator called Ann Coulter. She saw these videos online that had been posted, and she retweeted them, and Trump then retweeted her, okay? I honestly, and I want to say this again, I honestly would bet every penny in Lombard Street to an orange that the president has never, ever heard of this Franson woman, has certainly never heard of Britain First, all right?
Well, the thing is, though, he should do some research before he tweets out to 40-odd million followers this racist propaganda. And that's the lack of judgment on his behalf. And if he wasn't the President of the United States, the British government surely should be approaching Twitter to have his account suspended for keep spreading around this hateful stuff. It doesn't matter what kind of spin he put on it. At the end of the day, he's retweeted racist abuse. So if he was just Joe Bloggs, we'd be up in arms about it. He'd go onto some kind of watch list for the police and the security services.
Well, I don't know about that, Dave. There's all sorts of stuff gets put out there on Twitter and Facebook, and, you know, some of it gets taken down, but in many ways, very, very little of it. As far as him being banned from Twitter, of course, here's the irony. He's actually been the best thing commercially for Twitter that's ever happened to them. I mean, Dave, the one point you make that is absolutely right is why didn't he research this? And I'll tell you why, Dave. He's a very impulsive man. He sees stuff, he acts, and sometimes that impulse, that instinct, absolutely hits the button in terms of American public opinion. That's why he's got 43.6 million followers, and he's the president of the USA. But the more people do things impulsively, the more chance they've got of getting things wrong. And I do think he got this badly wrong this morning. I'm with you on that. What would you, I mean, Dave, put yourself in the Prime Minister's position. What would you say to Trump? Would you say he's still welcome to come? What would you do?
Well, what I was we got Theresa May, who's absolutely hopeless, because she can't even get Boris Johnson to admit he was wrong. She needs to have a word in his ear to just say, look, this what you're saying is wrong. What you're supporting is wrong. It's not just this. There's things such as during the week where you addressed a Native American senator as Pocahontas, or I don't know, whatever they call them, one of their various politicians. But it was
that's right. She'd claimed this American Indian descent, hadn't she? And, yes, and it was disrespectful. Hey, Dave. Dave, this guy is wholly unconventional, and he does upset a lot of people. He did act today in poor taste, but he is the president of the USA, and isn't it important, whatever his mistakes are, and I think you're right, the Prime Minister should not be afraid of speaking her mind, but despite all of that, Dave, isn't it right that he comes to this country and talks defence and talks trade?
Absolutely, as representative of the office of the President of the United States. As Donald Trump, I think as soon as he's out of that office, we should give him a good kick up the backside and say thank you very much, but no thanks.
Dave from Uxbridge, I thank you very much indeed for your call. Amir feels on Twitter that Trump should not be allowed in any Muslim countries and banned from travelling. But Amir, did you see the speech he gave in Riyadh where he said he wanted to work closely with the Muslim world in a partnership to drive out extremism? Some callers, Abigail earlier, don't believe he was sincere when he said it. I have to say, I actually do. It's not who he retweeted, it's what he retweeted that is the issue, says Paul. Well, Paul, you're right, but unfortunately the media are focusing on the fact that it came from this Jada Franson woman who's got a very serious conviction for race hate and who is deputy leader of Britain First, who many, many people had never heard of before today, and yet somehow we've kind of made them a bit more famous today, I think. Rana is calling from Northampton. Good evening.
Hello, Nigel. Hi.
Hi. How do you feel about what Trump has done today and our reaction?
Well, I just feel that this outrage over Trump's retweets is completely hypocritical when it wasn't properly directed when, say, the King of Saudi Arabia visited the UK or the President of China. I just think it's being done mainly by the left for political, tribalist reasons. And I just wish if I could see more protests when the current, say, if the current king or crown prince of Saudi Arabia visits the UK, who have done far more horrendous crimes in their own countries than Trump has done, which is just a simple retweet. And however wrong it was, it's still not as impactful as, say, many of the former heads of state and despots that the UK has welcomed before.
Yeah, we've had some terrible despots visit the United Kingdom. You're absolutely right. And the red carpet rolled out for them by Speaker Bercow and visits to Buckingham Palace and many other things. What is it, Rana, what is it in the minds of the left that they seem to hate Trump more than any other historical figure?
Well, he's not very eloquent, to be honest. And he's not politically correct. And to me, he doesn't seem like a hinged or a reasonable president. He is, in my opinion, he does cause some little bit of an embarrassment, but he's not the worst president that the United States has ever had. And I don't think, and when Trump got elected, my first reaction was neither joy nor depression, because I believed that everything that I feared Trump would do, Hillary Clinton had already done.
OK, Rana, listen, you put that beautifully. Thank you. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show exclusively on LBC, live from Brussels, and it's 7:45.
Live from Brussels, only on LBC.
We're talking Trump, who's upset everybody by retweeting a retweet of videos, anti-Muslim videos that are in very poor taste. And it's led to some Labour figures like Chuka Umunna saying he shouldn't be allowed to come to the country. And I'm asking you, is that right? But before I get back to that, On my Sunday show last week, we highlighted the plight of British fishermen. The aim of the trip, out of Ramsgate, and it's there, and we, took video of it too. We were examining the impact of the Common Fisheries Policy, which of course is set and regulated by the European Union. If you go now to LBC Instagram account, you'll find out exactly what happened, including a brush between me and the UK Border Force. How about that? So, LBC Instagram, and you can see, not just that, but you can see good, mature fish, skate fish, being thrown back dead, many to die because of fishing quota rules, which I want changed ASAP. But, back to Trump, has he gone over the top? Is this a reason to say that the 45th President of the United States should not visit our country? I'm going to ask Chet in East Dulwich that very question.
Hi, Nigel. I think the answer for me is no. He shouldn't be allowed to visit, but I don't think it's practical in terms of the politics involved that we can put a ban on him. I think when you're in a position of power that Trump is in, he really needs to scrutinise every move he makes, and he's really got to be held up as a poster boy of, good morals and good values if you're going to lead a nation like the US and the UK, right, in terms of our special relationship. So that all needs to be thought about. When you look at, I'll just make an analogy. If you're a headmaster in a diverse area, I live in London, you look at some areas where there's a real diverse population. If you have a headmaster retweeting that kind of stuff, or even being caught looking at that kind of stuff to a certain extent, you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to create some noises and probably an exit. So I think given the noise that's been created around Trump and his, fake news and all of that kind of stuff, he's already got loads of barriers to prevent himself and protect himself from being exited. I just think that,
I have to say, Chet,
hatred to a certain extent.
Chet, you've raised an interesting point here, because Trump does scream about fake news, and in many cases, I think he's right. However, when Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House press secretary, was asked about the veracity of these videos, she said, I'm not talking about the nature of the video. I think you're focusing on the wrong thing. And she then talked about the threat. And I think actually, if you're going to go around screaming fake news at other people, if you make a mistake yourself, you probably ought to call it, oughtn't you, really?
Well, I think it's past the point of calling it. You can't be naive as a US president. I understand he's an extrovert. He's, not fitting the typical president model. But, you're the leader of the free world. People look up to you. So you would like Chet to see him just sort of exercise a little bit more caution, yeah? Let me just explain. I'm an Asian, British Asian.
Yeah.
Here in the UK. This type of behaviour creates tensions. People get riled up by this. If you look at I can't remember the lady's name who originally put the tweets out, she posted immediately that President Trump with 45 million people has retweeted her tweet.
I know.
Now, all that Britain First hype is going to, they'll start doing their parades, smashing up local shops, all of that.
Well, that's why, Chet, I'm annoyed that the British media has given that aspect of it more prominence than anything else, because the fact is it was an American commentator that retweeted them. But, Chet, you've raised some very good and very important points, so thank you. Another new caller. I thank you very much for your call. On Twitter, of course Trump should still visit Britain. We need him, and people can protest if they want to, but we still need him to come. Nigel, of course, Trump should come here. How would we feel if they banned Mrs. May? The American people voted for him, and we should respect them. It is democratic. Joy says the USA doesn't need the UK. The UK needs the USA. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Harrison is calling me from Southampton. Harrison, good evening. Did Trump get this wrong, and should we ban him?
Good evening, Nigel. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I'm slightly annoyed at all the focus on Britain First. I think Trump got this wrong. I think somebody who is as impulsive as he is bound to get the odd thing wrong. But I think the idea that we should ban him is frankly ludicrous.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest with you. I sit on the left here in the UK, and I do go against the grain with a lot of my political peers and say that we shouldn't ban him from coming over here. I mean, he was democratically elected in a respectful manner, and he's a influential world leader. But I think a good message to a lot of his opponents who are calling for a ban, like Chuka Umunna. I think the key is discussion. I think if you respectfully disagree with him, then you need to engage in a discussion, and an argument becomes over here. Because if you fail to engage in the argument, then you lose the argument. If you shut down and silence someone, regardless as to what you think of them, don't get me wrong, I disagree with Trump on almost everything. I mean, a good majority of things. But I would rather have a discussion and a debate with somebody that I disagree with rather than turn around and shut them down, because it's censoring people that has led to a platform like Donald Trump in the first place.
Yes, because people felt they couldn't speak their minds. Middle America felt that the things they wanted to say had effectively been banned from public discourse. And there are many, Harrison, many of your friends on the left that want to ban speakers from, no platform people at universities and all the rest of it. What has gone wrong? What has gone wrong with left of centre democratic politics that it now seeks to ban those with the opposite opinion?
I don't really know, in all honesty. I can't really answer that because I suppose I sit on the populist left, really. So often or not, I'll be shouted down or assumed about myself by a lot on the right. I think it's because people either don't have an argument or they've got themselves into this situation where they feel as though they've got to try and they've made their bed and now they've got to lay in it with regards to whatever happens with political discourse. So when something does come up like this and they haven't really prepared themselves with a counter-argument, it then just feels like they're not really sure what to do.
But it's very bad for democracy, isn't it? For the left to want to ban the right or the right to want to ban the left is not good. And Harrison, tell me, are you a Corbynista?
Yes, I am. I have to be honest with you. I actually joined the party 2 years ago because of him.
Yep. Well, he's had a pretty good year, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think he's done very well, and I think that it's almost in the same sense as a Donald Trump victory. I think, obviously circumstances, it being a 7-week election, and I think Theresa May actually ran a campaign a lot like Hillary Clinton. She ran on the assumption that she had already won, and she failed to engage with the electorate. Whereas with Jeremy Corbyn, he's actually going out, like Donald Trump, and engaging with those individuals who feel left out.
Do you know what? I watched the way Corbyn was doing it, the way he's engaged with social media, and boy, he and Momentum have done that very, very well. The politics may be different, but in many, many ways, you're quite right. The campaigning style, very, very similar. Harrison, I thank you very much indeed. Kerry says, of course not. Why should we pay for his security and his entertainment? He's done nothing for us. Well, Kerry, if he comes and we treat him properly, he might do a lot more for us. Who's to say? And whatever happened to free speech? People want to ban the president because of a retweet. Crazy. And my last caller, I haven't got long, but Usman in Ilford. What do you think, Usman?
Hi there. I just have a couple of points to make first. I think that as the President of the United States, he needs to make sure that what he's retweeting are substantiated facts. One of the videos that he tweeted about the Muslim migrant in Holland.
Yeah, it was nonsense.
Exactly, it was nonsense.
Yeah, no, I agree. Usman, you've got 20 seconds left. Please make the second point, because time is running away from us.
I think if there's a double standard that exists here. I think if somebody else were to tweet something that would, racially aggravating against Jews or Christianity, there'd be international outrage. And this is very much aggravating against the Muslim community, but there isn't that much of an outrage. I think that double standard is quite.
Actually, Usman, there's quite a lot of outrage out there. But listen, I thank you for your call. I'm sorry, I've got to cut it off there. Lots and lots and lots of you wanted to call. Most of you tonight calling had never called the show before, so I guess you felt really strongly about this issue. And yeah, I understand why. Look, the fact is, the media are wrong to give this huge prominence to Britain first. The president has made a mistake, but I tell you something, he isn't going to change. He got where he got by being impulsive, by acting on his own reactions, by using Twitter himself, by taking advice from no one, and he will not change. You've been listening to The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. I'm back in London tomorrow at 7. At 10 tonight, it's Ian Collins, but up next, it's Clive Bull.